Today we're going to talk about leadership theory, just leadership in kind of in general, and we're just going to be touching on leadership theory. There are entire courses on leadership. There are entire master degrees and PhDs and all of these seminars in leadership concerning leadership. So, over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be touching on some leadership theory that you should be aware of and that is applicable in the EMS environment. Now, first, there are some pretty broad and kind of big responsibilities of a leader. And when we're talking leader, you can think, leader of the entire organization, leader of the hospital, of the EMS agency. You can think mayors, you can think governors, you can think even field training officers or supervisors. Whatever your role is, if you have a leadership role, you can be a leader. So, what are some core responsibilities of leaders? Well, one, if we're looking at an organizational kind of standpoint, organizational lens, kind of guide the mission and the vision of that organization, kind of guide that strategic plan, and just where is that organization going. Another responsibility of the leader is to motivate the employees, motivate um, your employees, those that you supervise. You want them motivated. That's your job to motivate them. Um, and then a leader is also a spokesperson for that organization, a spokesperson and an advocate for that organization. So the leader is out there. He or she is out there showing her face, being a spokesperson for this organization, for this agency, being an advocate for the agency and everyone that represents it, works for the agency, or is affected by the agency. So all the employees, all the stakeholders, you've got this spokesperson and this leader. And then lastly, it's sometimes overlooked, but networking is a large responsibility for leaders. We need to have, we've got the spokesperson responsibility there, but we also need to get the word out. We need to be connected with others. So, that networking, getting out to conferences, knowing if you're, a leader of an EMS organization, knowing your local elected officials, your county commissioners, your city councilors, mayors, maybe even governors, right? Knowing these legislators, knowing these other individuals that can push and advocate for your mission, for your vision as a leader, right? So we're networking and we're growing our network. So if we have an issue, we can reach out to a number of people, right? So those are some core competencies, some core responsibilities of leaders. But if we look back into leadership theory, there are a number of kind of theories about what makes a good leader. Kind of qualities and so looking back like 100 years or so, we had this great man theory, and that's just your leaders just have these inherent traits that make them good leaders. They're just born leaders. That's the great man theory. Developed about 100 years ago or so. Has a lot of flaws to it. We've built upon it since then. Just looking at face value there, you can kind of see it kind of cuts out 50% of our population, right? And the great man. But holistically, it just says a leader is born a leader. You can't teach it. It's born. Kind of nature versus nurture there. So we've developed that since then. We've got the situational leadership, which is, we've got all these employees, we've got all these people we're supervising, and each one needs a different thing. So our leadership style changes with each individual employee. That is inefficient, that is horribly tiring, and leads to ultimately, we kind of found, leads to employee unhappiness is probably the best word I can think of right now. Unhappiness because people are being treated differently. So we kind of worked into this transformational leadership in which we're trying to empower our employees, empower our um, those who we supervise, our subordinates. So kind of empowering them, raising consciousness. in them. And then we've got to get to this kind of adaptive leadership in the past, maybe 15, 20 years or so, in which we're kind of building on that transformational leadership and taking that empowerment and then building individual capacity within our employees, within our subordinates, so that they can thrive and they can go kind of build kind of the next step in our organization. Now, those were some kind of primary common theories. Now we kind of come into some current models of leadership. First, we've got this authentic leadership, in which, how am I going to be a leader? Well, I'm just going to kind of follow my internal compass. Authentic to me, I'm going to follow what feels best, what feels right in that situation. We've got diversity leadership, in which we have very culturally competent leaders, and they're very cognizant of cultural diversity, and just maybe not just cultural diversity, but diversity from start to finish. We've got servant leaders, servant leadership, where the primary driver of that leader is to serve others in any capacity, whatever capacity. We see this a lot in EMS. We have a lot of servant leaders in EMS because we're drawn to a lot of altruism. We're drawn to this to serve others. And then another one I want to talk about or point out is resilient leadership, and that's taking building inner strength as a leader, building inner strength, building perseverance, and trying to do the same for our employees and our subordinates. Build inner strength of our employees, build perseverance of our employees. And kind of what this all boils down to is emotional intelligence. Good leaders have to have a good amount of emotional intelligence. This can be natural emotional intelligence, or this can be learned. Emotional intelligence is definitely a learned skill. Um, so we have self awareness, we have self regulation. I'm not going to fly off the handle. Um, you know, Based on the situation. So I've got self awareness. I know what my limits are. I've got self regulation. I can handle a reporter in my face. I've got self motivation. I don't need someone else to motivate me to do my work. I don't need someone else to motivate me to do good work and effective work and meaningful work. I've got self motivation. I can get up and do my job on my own. And then, really important, I've got empathy for others. Right, and we're going to split out empathy and sympathy. So empathy, right, we can put ourselves in the shoes of others and say, even though I don't exactly know what you're going through, I'm there. I'm there for you. So we've got empathy, and then just general social skills, and a lot of this is really learned. So overall, social skills are learned over many years. So emotional intelligence really plays into good leadership characteristics. And there are a number of styles of leadership and frameworks of leadership. And one I really want to point out is kind of it's just got four primary points. And they go one to the other, to the other, to the other. So we start with a directing style. So think of yourself as a leader with one employee. Maybe you're an FTO, you've got your trainee. You're going to start with a directing style of leadership. Then you're going to move on to a coaching style, onto a supporting style, and then onto a delegating style. So this framework here, it's pretty common. It's been around for a while. You may see different names for these different stages, but here's the one I'm going to throw at you. So you start with directing, go to coaching, supporting, and delegating. And what those four styles mean, we're going from 1 to 4. Well, we've got a y-axis, we've got an x-axis here. So we've got supportive behavior, and we've got directive behavior here on the x-axis. So directive behavior, very straightforward. I'm directing you. I'm telling you exactly what to do. Supportive behavior isn't necessarily like I support you or I don't support you, low or high. It's not that. Supportive behavior is I'm giving you resources. I'm supporting your work with resources, and with support, with higher support, you need me as a leader more to do your job. Right? It's not that I support you as a person. It's I'm supporting your work by kind of helping you along. So We start with directing right down here, highly directive. So lots of directive, um, low support. So I'm just telling you what to do. That's all this is. This directing um, stage is I've got an employee. I'm telling you exactly what to do. I'm telling you exactly how to do it. And then you're going to come back to me in a day or 2 days or a week or 3 weeks or whatever the timeline is with the product. As we develop, as we lead, as we develop our employees, we're going to go to this coaching area where I am still telling you what to do, but then you're coming back to me and saying, okay, well, I need X, Y, and Z to do this job. I say, great, here's X, Y, and Z, and then here's also P, Q, and L, and K, and M to kind of support you as you do this task. But I'm still telling you exactly what to do. So I'm still highly directive behavior. Um, and then from coaching, we move into the supporting role where I'm still highly supportive. You've got A, B, and C. You've got X, Y, and Z. You've got L and M and Q and P. You've got all of these things. But I'm not fully directing you exactly what to do. You're getting the job done, but I'm supporting you in getting that job done. So we moved into the supporting role. And then finally into this delegation role. You know what to do, you know how to do it, so do it. And that's where we want to be with our subordinates, with our, I say subordinates, that sounds like an inferior, like a bad thing. Um, I'd say subordinates, just your employees, those that you supervise. So you've got employees, you've got those that you supervise, and you say, I'm going to delegate this task, and they just go and they do it. And they know I don't have to support them a whole lot. That supportive behavior is pretty low because they know where the resources are. This employee knows how to get to those resources, knows who to talk to, knows what to get, knows what to do. I don't have to direct. That employee knows what to do. So once we get to delegation, right, we're happy. Leadership, like leadership done, right? So you've led them through direction, through coaching, through supporting, and now this employee is very autonomous and very self-supportive. As a leader, there's some key behaviors that people look for and respond to, and you should have. And if you are lacking in any of these, no worries. We're just going to work on them, and we're all gonna. No one's perfect. We're all gonna lack in something. But key behaviors to be aware of. The leader should be professional. Should have a high ethical standard, right? So we've got professionalism, we've got ethics right there. There's going to be a lot of trust and respect going both ways. So a leader, you have to start with trust and respect, 100% trust and respect of your employees, and then they'll return it to you. A leader is going to have a lot of confidence, and I don't say that in you might think of that in maybe a negative way, but let's reframe it as passion. So a lot of confidence, a lot of passion. Love what they do. They are invested in what they're doing. A good leader is going to be visible, not holed up in their inner office 24/7. It's going to be out there. One of the very first EMS directors that I was an EMT, and that EMS director himself was on a truck as a paramedic, one shift, one 12-hour shift per month. That was his promise to us as field employees. So one 12-hour shift per month, he was on the truck, running calls, just like we were. So he's visible, right? And you can be visible in other ways, but you have to be visible out there and available to your employees. And that availability goes along with open communication. You have to have really good open communication, and that'll turn into this awesome two-way communication. Open and honest communication. You're going to be, taking the fall for some stuff. When something great happens, you're going to be giving a lot of credit to other people. But we're going to be having a lot of open communication when things are changing, even when things aren't changing. You're just giving updates of the organization to everyone involved. A good leader is also sometimes a risk taker. Right? You're not going to be, a crazy person, but you're going to be a little bit of a risk taker. No one likes a leader that just sits on their laurels and says, what we're doing in 1998 is working just fine right now. Well, no. In no way, shape, or form, what we're doing in 1998 is great right now. So you can be a little bit of a risk taker, push things, um, set agendas, be a visionary, be a little bit of a risk taker, and openly communicate with your employees that being a risk taker and taking this little bit of a risk is a good thing. It kind of pushes the organization forward. And then with all of that, we're going to have a good leader is going to have some balance between all of these things. You're a 100% risk taker, but you're not visible. You don't communicate with anyone. It's not a good thing. So we're going to have balance with everything that we do. That's usually one of the more difficult things as this kind of immersive leader is to have balance um, in our job. We can boil all of that down into this ABCDE model as an acronym. So we've got attitude, we've got behavior, we've got communication, demeanor, and ethics, and that makes a good leader. Kind of a good foundational leader. And a good leader creates and cultivates this really good organizational culture. And if you haven't heard this term before, organizational culture is just kind of the environment in which we work. And I'm sure you can think of leaders, whether they're supervisors, FTOs, or whoever you're reporting to, who were maybe a little toxic. If you ever heard of a toxic work environment, that's organizational culture. So, organizational culture is really going to guide and drive employee behavior. And it comes from the top. Your employees are going to see it in the leadership, in the administration. If they are just bad leaders and kind of terrible to each other, it's going to trickle down, right? You've heard of that ball rolling down the hill, and you've read news articles about whatever work environment being toxic, and it starts at the top. It works its way down. So it's guiding employee behavior for the better or for the worse. And it affects quality of work. So if you have a toxic organizational culture, we have a bad negative organizational culture, the patient care is going to suffer. If you have a great organizational culture, employees are going to be happy. It's going to be a great environment to work in. You're going to, not only are employees going to be happy, you're going to be attracting potential employees. If you advertise an open position, you have a great organizational culture, and other people know that and see that, you're going to have dozens and dozens and dozens of applicants and dozens of good applicants. And it's going to affect patient care in a positive way. So pay attention to organizational culture. As a leader, you are really kind of driving and, well, leading organizational culture. And I'm sure you've seen some infographic or something, some image kind of like this, where there's a difference between a leader and a manager. So, what does a manager do? A manager just says, go do this. But a leader says, let's do this together. And that's really kind of what we want to get at here when we talk about leadership theory is we're not putting you or someone else or whoever, we're not putting you in this position to command and to tell and to dictate. We're putting you in this position where you should be pulling people in and saying, we a lot. Pulling them in, saying, what do we need? How do we need to do this? Let's do this together. And you are the role model there. So we want to differentiate between the two. We don't want to be a manager. We don't want to be the boss. We want to be the leader. And when we're the leader, comes a responsibility for some succession planning. Now, this isn't super common in EMS. I've seen it here and there, but it's not really common in EMS. Succession planning is I'm going to leave this position someday. Let's say I'm a director of an EMS organization. I'm going to retire. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go somewhere else. Well, I need someone to step in and lead this organization and continue the good work that we've been doing. So we identify some individuals and we coach them and we mentor them. But there's a big difference between coaching and mentoring. So when I leave, there's someone that can step into that role without going, oh my God, what am I doing? Right? So we've got these individuals we're coaching and mentoring. And a coach and a mentor differ a lot, just like a manager, a boss, and a leader differ a lot. So a coach is going to pull you along and just tell you what to do, just like a boss will. Just tell you what to do is going to pull you along. A mentor, just like a leader, is going to push you to do better. So some really great mentoring traits if you're kind of acting as a mentor, or if you're looking for some mentorship. These are things to look for. So your mentor should be an expert in whatever it is. So access to expert information. Your mentor should also be developing meaningful experiences for you, and that's where we get into that push or pull. You know, am I pulling you along and just going like, yeah, this experience came up, go do it, or am I pushing you along and saying these experiences are out there? Why don't you go participate? Why don't you make your own experiences? How do we make our own experiences? So developing these meaningful experiences is very important in mentoring. Your mentor is going to have very high standards because your mentor is investing a lot of time and effort into you. Or maybe you're the mentor, you're investing a lot of time and effort in someone else. So you're going to have high standards. You're not going to waste your time. So you want a mentor that is investing their time. You want a mentor that is setting high standards, because once that mentor is gone, whatever standards were set, you're stuck with. And if you're expected to go above and beyond those standards, well, then now you don't know how to do it. Um, and then your mentor is going to understand some, at least basic teaching techniques. So, not necessarily a professional educator, but understands how to impart that information. They're an expert, and they've got this expert information. How do you impart that onto someone else? And then there's a lot of open and honest communication between the mentor and the mentee. So, if that mentee is not progressing as well as he or she should, well, then there's going to be some pretty open and honest conversation there to see, um, how can we rectify this? How can we move forward? Or even, is this kind of not the best thing for the mentee at the moment? Should we reevaluate this? So a lot of really open and really honest conversation going on. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or cuss words, please let me know.